How to handle North Korea. The United States and South Korea rolling out a missile defense shield just days after Pyongyang fired more test rockets, this time onto the Sea of Japan. Pyongyang angry and jittery over annual joint military exercises by Seoul and Washington. Then, of course, there's the diplomatic escalation with Malaysia after the assassination at Kuala Lumpur airport last month of Kim Jong-un's half-brother. We now know it was a potent nerve agent that was used, but the circumstances, motives, and the timing remain open to speculation. Nerves particularly frayed because Pyongyang, not the only place that's hard to read these days. There's China and a U.S. State Department that's gone mostly quiet since Donald Trump took office. What to make of the muted response, it seems, from Washington? What are the North Koreans making of it all? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at what is in escalation. With us from Denver, former ambassador to South Korea and Assistant Secretary of State, Christopher Hill, now Dean of the Joseph Corbell School of International Studies at the University of Denver. Thank you for being with us.
Pleasure.
From Leeds University, we'll be joined by Chinese history lecturer Adam Cathcart, the author of Change and Continuity in North Korean Politics. With us from Manchester, North Korean exile Ji-yoon Park. Thank you for joining us. She's with the European Alliance for Human Rights in North Korea. And here in the studio, we welcome back Benoit Kennedy, Vice President of the France-Korea Friendship Association. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
The France 24 debate on Facebook and Twitter, hashtag F24debate. Where to begin? How about with the travel ban North Korea has imposed on all Malaysians, not from entering, but from leaving the DPRK? Sharon Gaffney has the latest.
Worsening relations between North Korea and Malaysia as the fallout from the killing of Kim Jong-nam continues. Pyongyang has banned Malaysian citizens from leaving the country in a move it claims is aimed at ensuring their protection. The Malaysian Prime Minister described the ban as being tantamount to hostage-taking. Kuala Lumpur then responded by announcing that North Korean embassy staff would be prohibited from leaving its territory, but later extended the ban to cover all North Korean citizens.
We never planned to retaliate, but when we're confronted with a country that has breached international diplomatic norms and ethics, we have no choice. We're forced to take the same action because they've manipulated a murder investigation.
The Malaysian government says only 11 of its citizens live in North Korea, while about 1,000 North Koreans are believed to be in Malaysia. They've been caught up in a row that began with the killing of Kim Jong-nam at a crowded airport in Kuala Lumpur last month. There's growing speculation that North Korea orchestrated the attack on its leader's estranged half-brother. So far, 2 women have been arrested in connection with his killing, but police in Malaysia are seeking a further 7 suspects. Officers believe several of them may be hiding in the North Korean embassy in Kuala Lumpur and have sealed off the building. North Korea denies any role in the killing and has accused Malaysia of conspiring with its enemies.
Christopher Hill, what do you make of what is now can definitively be termed an assassination?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. It's definitively termed and decided that this was definitely an assassination. And I think the Malaysian authorities are simply not going to put up with the idea of a foreign government and presumably even using diplomatic means to bring in what they needed to bring in to carry off this assassination. So I think the Malaysians have reacted as any other country would react, and I think the North Korean reaction is pretty typical of them as well. So I think Malaysia can kind of join the club in terms of North Korea just kind of losing its temper. Where this all goes is hard to say at this point. But, you know, the Malaysians have a history of not being really told what to do by others. They certainly have a very independent streak in them. And so I'm not sure where this is going to end up, but certainly I wouldn't count on Malaysian-North Korean relations being patched up anytime soon.
There's so many enigmas surrounding this still. Christopher, we're looking as we speak to you of those images from the CCTV footage when Kim Jong-nam was at the airport. There he is traveling all by himself. What does that tell you?
Yeah, it's he was under Chinese protection in Macau. He and his family. It was rather remarkable to see him, having spent a few days apparently in Malaysia, to be traveling by himself. The Kim Jong-un regime has targeted him in the past, and we know that he actually sent a rather pathetic letter to his half-brother saying, "Please leave me alone." So clearly that didn't work. I think what it was obviously the North Koreans figured out how he travels, how he comports himself in airports, and they just essentially nailed him in a very professional and pretty grim and cold-blooded murder.
Adam Cathcart, what's your take on the circumstances under which he was poisoned?
Well, I think there's been a long-standing order to have him assassinated, or at least get moved out of the way. He had a habit of sort of talking to media members who would sort of bump into him outside of his various haunts, which were hotels in Singapore, golf clubs in Macau, and other places like that. And his statements were not to the liking of Kim Jong-un. And there's also the fact that this was a hereditary succession in North Korea. You have to remember that Kim Jong-un's main attribute, the only real thing on his CV when he came to power, was that he was the son of Kim Jong-il. And there's a massive propaganda apparatus around this bloodline, the Paek-2 succession. So it may seem quite obscure to us that this sort of exiled son was in Macau relatively harmless, but could have been a severe rival for Kim Jong-un, and his connections to the Chinese government, I think, made Pyongyang uncomfortable.
Should we make anything of the fact
to what Ambassador Hill has stated?
Go ahead.
What I would like to add to what Ambassador Hill had stated about the circumstances of the assassination is the use of this VX nerve agent is really remarkable in an international airport, and it's possible that North Korea really deeply miscalculated in using this. They also waited 5 days after the Malaysian authorities had stated that this was a VX nerve agent, which is, of course, prohibited under international law. And that, so we have to wonder what kind of message is being sent there. It's not simply that we will eliminate our enemies, but that we have stockpiles of this. I think they were quite slow to deny that.
Slow to deny that. We can welcome to the conversation Ji-Yoon Park, North Korean exile with the European Alliance for Human Rights in North Korea. You, on 2 occasions, escaped from North Korea. What's your reaction to this story?
Hello, my name is Ji-Hyun Park, once refugee escaped from North Korea. I was left North Korea first time was in 1998. It was massive bombing in North Korea. So took 3 million people died of starvation at this time. So first, my family member, my uncle died of starvation in front of me, and my father was illness, but North Korea has any medicines available in every citizens. Another disaster hit me was my brother also left his military was big problems because he was business in military and made loyalty money to regime, but his business was failed and also all these members punishment in military. So he left home, he left the military. So my father last wish was to save my brother. So I went to China with my brother, but I was established.
All right, we seem to be having technical issues with the sound. We're going to try to fix those and get back to Manchester with you, Ji-Hyun Park. Benoit Kennedy, let me just show you an image that's been circulating. The North Korean ambassador expelled in economy class, and authorities reportedly making sure, there you can see the photo, that he had a middle seat while being expelled. Is Malaysia handling this properly?
Yes, from the very beginning, if we have to understand the diplomatic row between North Korea and Malaysia, we have to take into account what happened to the North Korean ambassadors and how the North Koreans reacted. For them, they denied everything. They even denied that Kim Jong-un was assassinated. According to them, it is a diplomat named Kim Chol. So according to them, still, as it is a diplomat, normally the corpse should have been delivered to the North Korean staff in Kuala Lumpur. The North Korean ambassador protested very vigorously, so he was expelled.
So they're not even admitting that it's
They're
Kim
not
Jong-nam.
even admitted who it is. But the main point concerning the mystery surrounding this death, which is quite incredible, why would a state react in such a way with a lot of people around? It is absolutely not a way to act in a discreet way. So one of the main reasons, and the main objection of the North Koreans, it is murdering system. They say it is not the VX because they told that such an agent, if it had been used, there would have been consequences for the two women who used it. So the North Korean ambassador acted in a very angry way, so he was expelled. So the images that we can see are, yes, are the images of someone who had an important position, but who are now just like another citizen, who are just expelled like any other citizen from a country who is no longer welcome.
All right, picking holes then in the story, or trying to, are the North Koreans. Christopher Hill, where's this going to lead? Because after all, Malaysia was one of the few countries where you had visa-free travel with North Korea.
Well, I'm sure Malaysia is going to be off that list pretty soon if they haven't already. I think it was, frankly, everyone who's pointed out how outrageous this is absolutely right. I don't think the North Koreans knew how to handle it, knew what to say. Probably the ambassador, though, may have saved his job by reacting in that totally inappropriate and angry way, because that would be what they wanted him to do in Pyongyang. So the question is, how is this going to play out? I don't see a real patching this up with with Malaysian authorities. Malaysia's had a kind of tough patch of late with the airplane crash of last year, and I think they have developed, a better way of handling international opinion, and in my view, they've done a very good job here. I think the issue, of course, is we have a country that just doesn't care what anyone else thinks. Those missile launches just yesterday suggest that they simply don't care what America thinks, what Japan thinks, what even China thinks, and what Malaysia thinks. So they are really kind of on their own. And I won't say we're totally on uncharted waters at this point, but certainly we have a regime that is just absolutely engaged in developing banned weapons, nuclear. Now we see they have nerve agents, sophisticated nerve agents as well, and they simply are as they've been often called in the past, a rogue nation. And so this is not going to get any better. And I think the Trump administration in the United States has to face the fact that in the coming 4 years, they probably will have a deliverable nuclear weapon. And I don't think you're going to hear the Trump administration say something like the Obama administration, which was that we need to show more strategic patience. I think there's going to be a real, we're going to come to a point where this becomes an absolute crisis.
An absolute crisis. One North Korean diplomat telling the UN this Tuesday at a forum that the exercises, the annual exercises that South Korea and the United States are right now doing are, quote, a major cause of escalation of tension that might turn into actual war. Now, from your time as ambassador at the State Department, Christopher Hill, how do you interpret such strong language?
The North Koreans don't mind saying the exact same thing for years and years and years, and certainly they have characterized these exercises over the years as being some kind of act of war. The fact is, these are exercises that are very necessary for the quality of the alliance. That is, we cannot have American troops based in Texas who then go to Korea for the first time if there's some kind of crisis. They need to go to Korea, work with the South Korean forces, understand the terrain, understand their mission in the event of another North Korean invasion. My only regret about exercises is I wish we had them in the spring of 1950. Maybe that would have dissuaded North Korea in its invasion of South Korea. So we are not going to change that. And the North Koreans know that if they want to change in exercises, they need their own change of behavior. And they have agreed to give up their nuclear weapons. They've agreed to give up all their nuclear programs. And now they've walked away from that agreement and now ask for more discussions, more negotiations on the basis of nothing, on the basis of things that they would start out that next day saying, we want to talk. They won't admit that they've already agreed to certain things. So it would be like negotiating with someone who has amnesia, with absolutely no memory of what they've already agreed to. So I think it is pretty fair to say the North Koreans are not serious about any kind of talks. They're not serious about living up to what they've agreed to. And so I think we really are going to reach a crisis point. And certainly one of the best things we can do is to be prepared for any and all contingencies, which is why we must continue to have these military exercises.
All right, you're mentioning there the beginning of the deployment of that terminal high altitude area defense system, THAAD as it's known. This just after North Korea fired missiles as far as 1,000 kilometers away off the coast of Japan. That setting alarm bells off all over for the North Koreans. The U.S. deployment is definitely on their minds.
How much pressure the enemies put on us with their maneuvers, our self-defense and military power will only keep getting stronger.
Our enemies, the U.S. and South Korea, are escalating tension by conducting military exercises in a bid to tarnish the sovereign dignity of the DPRK. Like the saying, a club is the best remedy for a mad dog. We will never tolerate those who treat us this way.
Adam Cathcart, that's what people are saying in front of the cameras. What is behind these tests? And you just heard Ambassador Hill saying that the North Koreans discarding previous negotiations. What's behind it all?
Well, I think we have to disaggregate sort of what is traditional, as Ambassador Hill noted, in North Korean strategy, and both in rhetoric and in action, and what is new and what is developing and what we need to be on guard for, or at least prepared to rebalance strategies against. And I think that their traditional anti-Japanese sentiment is very strong, and it's very true, I think, among the North Korean populace. I mean, launching a missile at Japan is not anything that people inside the DPRK are going to be terribly sad about doing because of the history of Japan's colonial rule over the Korean Peninsula from 1910 to 1945 and the bad blood that still remains and is stoked by the regime there. But what I think the North Koreans, from their standpoint, need to be wary of, it's not just Trump administration, it's not just American power, it's not just these military exercises. They themselves have noted they need to worry about ideological fracture within their own country, with ideological propaganda coming in from China. And they also need to be wary that they don't burn their bridges in Southeast Asia. Places like Singapore are still open to North Korea for business, and this recent assassination could really hurt them. So, and the final thing I think is with the missile tests, the other thing that's changing, that the continuity is less strong, is the Chinese support for the DPRK, for North Korea. It's much less overt than it had been in the past. They've cut off their coal imports from North Korean coal into China. That's a major revenue source for the North Korean regime. And China seems to be enforcing these sanctions more or less overtly. And I think that the North Koreans have even complained about China's willingness to enforce sanctions. So there's some things that are changing. Some things, as Ambassador Hill says quite correctly, haven't changed since 1950.
All right, the Chinese, you say, wavering over their support for Pyongyang. When we come back, we'll hear, though, that they're plenty angry about the deployment of that missile shield system by the Americans and the South Koreans. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.